Yeah, Hurricane Ian is here, and we want to get to meteorologist Mike Masco now with the latest on the track, what we can expect later, and what does the rest of Florida need to be worried about. Great to see you, Mike.
Great to see you guys. Good afternoon. Let's talk about that storm surge and let's qualify that. That's something we've been talking about for days now. And this is the storm surge. This is what's called a blowout tide ongoing right now. Believe it or not, this is Tampa Bay at the present moment. All mud. That's the water line outwards about 20 feet. And this is right now the storm has become so strong, it's actually sucking the water out of Tampa Bay. Now, here's the problem with this. And the Florida Emergency Management just tweeted out saying, do not walk out here because what's going to happen is the water that gets sucked out towards the storm will get pushed on a southeast wind back into Tampa Bay. So this is the storm surge. And once this water comes back in, it's going to fill up, and we're going to watch that continue to climb, expecting anywhere from 6 to 10 inches, or 10 feet rather, of storm surge over the next couple of hours. Now, we are starting to see the western or the eastern eye wall coming into Cape Coral and Port Charlotte, but the eye itself is still offshore. So that tells us that this could still perhaps strengthen to a Category 5 storm as it moves up the coast. In fact, right now in Sarasota, you're getting very heavy rain bands, wind gusts in excess of 80 miles per hour. But on this trajectory, this northeast trajectory, we are expecting landfall to hit somewhere in the next couple of hours over Sarasota, and this could bring winds in excess of 120 miles per hour. There's the movement. North-northeast at 9. If this started to move more towards the northeast, well, that's Port Charlotte that will get into the landfall. But right now, that north-northeast jog, that's going to bring it somewhere over Sarasota. The big story is going to be the storm surge with this one. With the southeast push of wind, we have upped our storm surge forecast to 8 to 12 feet. That's an historic crest point. We have never seen that in the Fort Myers area. So Cape Coral, Pine Island, Sanibel Island, parts of Sanibel Island may actually go underwater for a brief period of time. And of course, downtown Fort Myers may be underwater by this evening. And then the storm is going to traverse the state as we go into the evening hours. 100-mile-per-hour winds all the way inland. We could see 100-mile-an-hour winds going into Lakeland and maybe hurricane-force winds getting into Orlando as we get into tonight. 10 to 15 inches of rain. This is going to be a freshwater flooding situation as you go inland. And here's a snapshot this evening. 102, that's your forecast wind gusts in Sarasota with a huge area. This is about 50 miles of 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts that we're expecting. And of course, there's the storm surge warning, guys, up and down the coast. And the next story is going to be Jacksonville. We have tropical storm warnings flying across the north portion of the state. We may also see a storm surge, not a southeast push of water, but a northeast push coming in from the Atlantic, and maybe a second landfall into Georgia. We'll talk more about that coming up in the next hour. We'll send it back to you.
Mike, I want to ask you a question because it is, king tide season in Florida, a new moon cycle, so the tides are higher than normal. Also, we're looking at high tide in Tampa Bay right now, which appears to be right around 6 o'clock this evening, the same time the storm will make landfall. How much is that going to compound the storm surge that we expect to see?
Right. So some of these forecasts have baked that in, and that's a great point because the tides are running about 2 to perhaps even 3 feet above normal. So we know that this storm surge is coming in at about 5 feet on minimum. So that's how we're arriving at our forecast of 5 to 10 feet. However, there's a big difference with this. That does not factor in the wave component. So the waves now are up at a higher level, and that could bring us up to almost a 10-foot storm surge. So there's a few layers to that. You made a very good point. I think that's why we may get to a historic level, because it's all coinciding together with the tidal cycle that's above normal.
Another component of this
now,
very dangerous hurricane.
I was just going to say another silver lining, I think, here for the state of Florida is that they've been in a drought. The rain is going to be significant as well, Mike, for central Florida, which of course then drains down into Lake Okeechobee and elsewhere. Talk about, too, how much rain the state is expected to get and why, even after the storm, we're not going to be out of the clear.
Yeah, that's something I think we are kind of like brushing by a little bit because we are so concerned with the storm surge. But if you're inland, like let's say a Gainesville area, this could be a rainfall that is around 10 to 15 inches of rain with isolated amounts of 20 inches. Governor DeSantis was actually on one of his press conferences saying it has been a rainy season for parts of the state, and it's been mostly to the north. So that is the concern. It's a pretty saturated soil going into this storm. And just imagine what 2 feet of rain could do. But that is going to be a big ticket item, especially as you move east along 4 going into Orlando and Dayton Beach. This could easily get to a 5 to 10 inch rainfall amount. And guys, another layer to this is the tornadoes. And I'm going to show you some video of a Naples tornado last night that was very, very large. There could be some violent tornadoes. And I know we talk tornadoes mostly out in, Oklahoma and Texas and that sort of thing, but there's so much wind energy that's coming ashore. So that is going to be a big thing that could aid in some big tornado developments, especially around Orlando. So we'll get into that coming up in a little while.
I remember Hurricane Wilma. There were a lot of tornadoes spawned by that storm, Mike, and the damage is just completely random. Sometimes hunker down. We hope everybody in Florida stays safe.
No crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the truth. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let me decide.
Newsmax.
Real news
For real people.